Well, you've learned a great deal about how to edit a news video for an online story or for social media. Now we are going to enter the world of TV news. Not only are we going to learn how to create a TV news story, but we're also going to learn about TV news in general. We're going to learn about what it looks like from in front of the camera, behind the camera, out in the field, and also at the anchor desk. So to understand how television news works in general, it is important to understand some of the jargon that goes along with TV news. So I'm going to start right out with that at first. There's a term called a lead-in or an anchor lead or anchor intro. That's going to be the sentence that the anchor person says before your report starts. So the reporter will be responsible for writing that sentence for the anchor person, even though they don't say it out loud. Okay? Then soundbite, we're all familiar with the soundbite. That's the short clip from an interview that lasts less than 15 seconds. You can have multiple soundbites, but each one should be short, less than 15 seconds. Now we're going to start talking about different formats of a news story that you might see on TV. There's something called a reader. It's 20 to 25 seconds long, generally short as possible. If you can keep it under 20 seconds, that's even better. And it's a story, because nobody has any video to go along with it, in which you only see the anchor's face on TV. And typically speaking, the theory of television is you want to cover as much stuff as you can with video, because watching a talking head becomes boring. Okay? So very rarely will you see a reader, and they will be short. The next type of story would be called a full screen. Again, in this case, there is no video to go along with it, but there might be some details that could go with it. And so in a full screen, you would hear that 20-second long story. The anchor would read it the whole time, but some bullet points would come up on the screen to detail what they were talking about.
Now,
again, this is because they have no video to
spoil
film.
and change color before the expiration date that's listed on the package container. The product has best use by date of October 25th, 2013 through February 11th, 2014. If you've purchased this cheese, you can return it.
A half screen, similar to the full screen, except that while the anchor is reading, you're going to see his or her face on one side of the screen, and the bullet points will show up on the left-hand screen. Now we're going to move into something that you might have heard of before, a voiceover. In TV, it's referred to by the letters VO for voiceover. And this is when you have the anchor person speaking, and in the second sentence, typically of their story, you start seeing video that rolls over their voice, so the anchor person continues to speak, but then you start seeing pictures and video of what they're speaking about.
Well, a 2-year-old is safe this morning after being abducted. Police are asking for your help, though, to find the man who took him. 2-year-old Jaron Jackson was kidnapped in Augusta Township. Early yesterday morning, Jaron and his 2 older siblings were waiting in his mother's car when it broke down.
This is called a voice-over. The anchor person is voicing over the video.
When she refused that help, he opened the back door of her car, grabbed the 2-year-old, and took off. Jaron was found by family members about 2 miles from the scene. He wasn't hurt.
Another type of story is a VOSOT, or a VSOT, it is sometimes called, and that stands for voice over sound on tape. Sound on tape, just another way of saying soundbite. So in a VOSOT, you have the anchor reading with the video covering him, very much like the VO that we had in number 6. And now the anchor person's reading, has some video covering him, and then stops for the soundbite.
More than $1,000 when he went to check out the property. He says he found a stash of child porn inside, and he says the pictures were of young African-American girls who'd clearly been sexually assaulted.
I've seen a lot of bad things, and I'll never want to see something like that again. It was horrible, horrible. I don't even want the house anymore, seriously, after something like this.
When the soundbite ends, the anchor person returns and finishes off the story. The total time for a VOSOT is about 45 seconds. And if you were looking to compare this to something similar in radio, it would be like the actuality story, where the anchor person starts talking, stops for a cut, and then continues to finish off the story. The VOSOT is the same thing, only adding the visuals to it. Very similar to the VOSOT is number 8, the VOSOT. And this means you have voiceover, so the anchor person starts talking. The voiceover is the video that covers him while he's talking. Then they stop for the soundbite, and instead of coming back and seeing the anchor person's face full screen, he continues to talk with more video covering him.
Detroit man gets something unexpected in his purchase at the Wayne County property auction. Frank Maroney bought a dilapidated house on Detroit's east side for a little more than $1,000. When he went to check out the property, he says he found a stash of child porn inside. And he says the pictures were of young African-American girls who'd clearly been sexually assaulted.
I've seen a lot of bad things, and I'll never want to see something like that again. It was horrible. Horrible. I don't even want the house anymore.
Frank called 911 immediately. He says he considers the whole house to be a crime scene, and he's not touching anything. Detroit police are now investigating.
So it's voiceover, sound on tape, voiceover. Again, about 45 seconds long, and again, similar to the actuality type of story. Then we have the package. I will be referring to it in writing as PKG from now on. That's just an abbreviation for package. And the package is what we would probably think in radio as the reporter wraparound story. The same exact concept. The reporter first has to write an anchor introduction for somebody. After he's gone out to the scene and interviewed the people, he will take what he has interviewed. He will log the interviews. He will also log the video that was shot by a photographer, comes back, writes that story, edits it, makes sure it gets edited with video covering every sentence that he said, and then it will air very much like the wraparounds aired, by the anchor person reading the introduction, and then a pre-recorded segment where the reporter narrates a full story.
The nights leading up to Halloween used to bring out arsonists, but in recent years, the number of arsons in Detroit around Halloween time have declined. 7 Action News reporter Ronnie Dahl shows us an effort to encourage more people to stand together to preserve their neighborhoods.
Thank you so much. You guys are beautiful.
Tony Logan expresses her gratitude to the men and women of the Detroit 300, all volunteers that just want to make life better and safer for others.
I lost my mom when I was 14, and I wasn't able to save her, so I'm out here just trying to do the best I can to save other women.
Saturday afternoon, members of the Detroit 300 hit the streets on Detroit's east side near 7 Mile and Gratiot. They stopped at house after house, walked block after block, and drove street by street with one goal in mind.
We're out here now, we're passing out these flyers to the community and to the stores, and also posting watch house signs.
Detroit 300 members are recruiting volunteers as part of the City of Detroit's Angels Night program. They believe the more people watching will result in fewer fires burning.
It makes a difference when everybody's looking, because this is a beautiful city here. Unfortunately, we have a lot of blight here, and we're trying to keep that under control so that it doesn't get any worse than it is now.
I have never seen this on my block before. This is excellent.
So the Detroit 300 volunteers will be on patrol next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evening. They'll get things started around 6 o'clock in the evening. If you're interested, you can meet them at City Airport. On Detroit's east side, Ronnie Dahl, 7 Action News.
A live report can take on one of several means. A live report could be a live reporter out in the field and being covered by a VO. It could be a live report where the reporter starts speaking and then is covered by VO and stops for an SOT.
Is scheduled to take an oath in the afternoon. Union attorneys want to grill him about the decision to take Detroit into the biggest municipal bankruptcy filing in history.
And now that we're here, we just need to thoughtfully go through the process in the appropriate way with the goal to turn around the city of Detroit. That's what this is all about, is ultimately getting Detroit on a great growth path.
And comes back and speaks live.
On the entire bankruptcy hearing on our website, WXYZ.com. Look for updates throughout the day tomorrow. You can follow us on Twitter, too, at WXYZ Detroit. We're live this morning outside the federal courthouse. Nima Shafee, 7 Action News.
Or it could be a live report package. Another reference to this, we would call this a donut. In this case, the reporter would speak live and then throw to a pre-recorded package that they had edited early on.
Halloween is just around the corner and people are getting creative with their costumes.
But at an elementary school in Roseville, some parents are upset by what a mother and daughter decided to wear. Fox News' Randy Wimbley live now in Roseville with more on these controversial costumes. Randy.
Yeah, guys, we're live here at Huron Park Elementary School in Roseville, where this all went down last night. And we've heard the slur before, white trash, and that's essentially what these costumes were about. We couldn't get a hold of the mom and daughter wearing the costumes, but we did find plenty of parents put off by them. It's trunk or treat at Roseville schools, but the fall festivities were far from being all fun and games at Huron Park Elementary Thursday night.
I was a little appalled. To me, how can you dress yourself and your child in a white trash outfit?
You heard that right. Black hoodies, white trash bags, and white trash written on the front.
Not cool. Very not cool.
There's more important things in this world right now. People are out of jobs. People are homeless, not eating. Lighten up.
And I know it's Halloween and you're just dressing them in a costume, but white trash, it's a kid.
The principal said that he's never had any trouble from that parent before, but that obviously was not the case last night.
The key to knowing if something is a live report is pretty simple. When you're watching it on TV, you will see something that says live over the top of them. That's the best way to know that it's live. I can share with you the philosophy of many TV stations. They believe that if viewers know something is live, they will feel it is far more important. So you will most often always see a local newscast start out with a story that is live and local, rather than starting out with a national or international story. If you take a look from now on and start watching TV news from channels 2, 4, and 7, you will notice more often than not they start out with a live report from somebody who's covering a local story. And the last jargon I wanted to share with you is the tag. A tag is a reference for anything that comes at the end of the story. If the reporter was going to be doing something called the stand-up, where they stand at the end of the story and hold the microphone and say something at the end, that would be the reporter tag. If the story ended and they wanted the anchor person to say something when the story was complete, that would be the anchor tag. So anything that is tagged on to the end of a story becomes the tag. Now, I want you to take a look below at how we format writing for TV news. Here is an example of a reader. And the first thing that I'd like you to notice is that the scripts in TV have 2 columns. The reason that we have 2 columns is the column on the left-hand side is for the director. This is where the directions go to tell the person in the back which buttons to push and when to push them, so that we know for sure that the story is going to get on the air in the right way. Everything on the right-hand side will be what the anchor person sees going through the teleprompter. So the words that are read are on the right and the directions will be on the left. In this case, our only direction is telling the director to push the button that takes the camera to show us the face of the anchor person reading live. On the right-hand side, the anchor person's name is John, we'll say. His name is in parentheses, which means he doesn't read anything in parentheses out loud. You will notice in the script that there are 4 sentences, and each one of those sentences is indented. That is so that the anchor person, when reading, will know when to pause at the end of each sentence. But let's say you have some video that was shot out in the field. An example of how to write a VO story is here as well. Generally, VOs are 20 to 30 seconds long. And you'll see again, we have take live anchor, the direction to take the anchor person speaking. When that happens, John, the anchor person, reads this first sentence here. But also when you're writing the story, you also have to tell the director when to take the VO, when to start the video rolling. And you see how it is lined up exactly next to the sentence where you want it to roll. And there's one more thing you're going to see on the left-hand side, and these are called a variety of things. I'm going to call them supers, superimposition. They can also be called lower third graphics, locator supers. They could be called Chiron after the name of the machine that types them. But basically what you have is Rochester Hills, the location, and an even more specific location, the name and the address of the street. You're going to write these items in as the writer of the story. They eventually will go up on the screen while the video is rolling. You will not be responsible for bringing them up on the screen. That is done by somebody behind the scenes. So what will happen in this VO story is John will start reading this word here. When he gets to the word time span, the director knows to start rolling the video. John, meanwhile, continues speaking the rest of the script that it has here. When he gets down to the word violence, then everybody looks to the next script for the next story and they start from there. So this is how you would write a VO story. Now let's take a look at the full screen concept. This is very much like a reader, exactly as the reader, and the only difference here is that you would put your bullet points on the left. They would be typed in later by somebody who works in the technical side. And when John, the anchor person, was reading and got to the words 24-hour time span, the director would know to take full screen and start bringing up the bullet points while John continues to read. Police say the murders all happened overnight in the pre-dawn hours. So you have a bullet point for pre-dawn hours. Except for these details, authorities say all the crimes were unrelated. You see a bullet point, crimes unrelated. Rochester Hills Police Chief called a press conference for later this afternoon. You have a bullet point for later this afternoon press conference. And this full screen would cover the entire screen while John the anchor was reading these words. Now let's talk about the VOSOT, which we said is very similar to the actuality. The VOSOT would start out very similar to the VO that we did above. So we have the directions for the director, take the live anchor on the left. John would start reading. When you want the video to start, you would have take VO, so the video would start rolling while John read these words. On this side, the supers giving the location would come up on top of the video. What makes this different is John, at this point, after he said crimes are unrelated, would stop for the soundbite, the SOT. You see in parentheses, we're writing that a soundbite is coming up next, and then we have transcribed the words that Sergeant Marks is going to be saying. But how does the director know that it's time to play that soundbite? Well, because the writer has to give them directions. Take SOT, that means roll the soundbite. And you notice, similarly to the way we did a cut, an actuality, in radio, you have the time, which is the length of this soundbite, which has to be read out loud to know how long it is, 15 seconds, and the out cue, which would be upcoming trial. The last couple of words are upcoming trial. In addition, in TV, as opposed to radio, you're going to put a super that identifies who is speaking. So I want you to take notice of this, that in the sentence leading up to the soundbite, we don't have to say the name that Sergeant Marks said this information, because what happens when we roll his soundbite, we're going to bring his name and title up on the screen right underneath him while he's speaking. So he is identified, and you do not necessarily have to write his name and title into your script. When Sergeant Marks finishes speaking, we have the directions for the director to take live anchor. He will push the button that brings John, the anchor person's face, back up on the air, and then John will finish reading the story when we see his face on the air that ends in teen violence. But we mentioned there's another type of actuality kind of story, the VOSOT VO. The VOSOT, which is voiceover, sound on tape, VO, same as the VOSOT, about 45 seconds long. And the only difference between what we're looking at now and the last story is that when we get down to the soundbite and the end of the soundbite, our directions say, take anchor VO tag, which means take the anchor but have the video covering him while he's speaking. So because the video is going to continue, they only bring up the mic, the audio of John, the anchor person. So John's audio will be up and he will be speaking, but you will be seeing video of the scene while John is finishing up the end of that sentence. Now the package is probably the most difficult to explain, and that is because not only is it like a rap that involves an anchor introduction, a reporter writing a script, interlacing that with some sound bites. In television, you also have to cover the reporter's narration with video. If you didn't cover the reporter's narration with video, all the TV viewers would see when the reporter is talking would be black. So let's take a look at how this works. You start out similar to the way that you would start out a wraparound in radio, with the anchor person introducing the story, a sentence, and then an introduction to who the reporter is going to be, and that the reporter has this story. On the left-hand side, we have to remind the director to take live anchor so we can see John reading this on camera. At this point, this is where the package is going to play, or in radio world, it would have been where the rap was going to start playing. We have to give the director a lot of details about this package. We tell him that it's a package and he has to push the button to play it. We tell him how long the total package will be once the reporter's voice starts, and we tell him what the out cue will be, the last couple of words that the reporter says. But in addition, in TV, we also have to list all the supers that are going to show up during the course of the report. And we have to say at what time in the report those supers need to come up on the screen. So when we start the reporter portion that starts right here, that will be our 0. So from 0 to 0 and 3, the director needs to know that's when he has to bring up the super that says Rochester Hills. When he gets to 8 seconds into the story, that's when he knows to bring up the super of Sergeant Mark Marks. When he gets to 30 seconds in the story, he'll bring up Mary Smith, the neighbor. And when he gets to 1:10 in the story, he'll see the reporter Michael Rosenfield doing a stand-up report, and that's when he brings up that super. All of these will be filled in after the reporter is done writing the story and editing it, and that's the best way to know when those times are going to come up. So now all of this has been written for the anchor person and the director. The stuff that I'm going to show you here below this line are the items that are written just for the reporter. So we see in the case of Michael's story, he decided to start out with a little bit of natural sound of police moving people behind the tape. Maybe they're saying, hey, hey, back up, get back there. And I'm going to talk about the left-hand side just in a minute, but let's take a look at how he scripted this. Michael starts out with a sentence, then he starts and has a soundbite of Sergeant Mark Marks, then Michael has another sentence that he says, and then he sticks in a soundbite from Mary the neighbor, and then Michael wraps it up at the end with something that's called the reporter stand-up. You've seen it quite often. It's when the reporter stands in front of the camera, holds the microphone, says something that pretty much wraps up the story without opinion, but wraps up or gives further details of what's going to happen next, and finishes the story looking at the camera saying where they are, location-wise in this case, in Rochester Hills, saying their name, I'm Michael Rosenfield, and then identifying their TV station. So in Rochester Hills, Michael Rosenfield, Channel 7 News. And that is the end of the stand-up, and that would be the end of the recorded piece. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are instances where Michael has recorded his voice, but on TV, you need some video to cover his narration. So you will see he is given instructions on the left-hand side to whoever is going to be editing his piece after he's recorded it, that he needs video of taped off area to be plopped over this sentence. He needs video of the body being put into the ambulance to cover this sentence. You'll notice when the Sergeant Marks speaks, he doesn't have any video covering that, and that's because there's already video. You see the face of Sergeant Mark Marks. But then Michael speaks again. He's narrated his voice onto the tape, and in this case, he's told the editor he wants video of neighbors talking in the street. That will be this element covering here. Mary, the witness, we can see her face on camera. Don't need to cover that with video, so you see that's blank there. And then since Michael recorded his stand-up out in the field, he's telling the video editor to take the stand-up clothes that he edited in the field and attach that at the end of the story. Now that you've gone through all of the material in this video, you can find the same material here in print format so you can look at it at any time. Then it's time to begin assignment number 7. Now assignment number 7 is going to have 2 parts. In one part I'm going to refer to, you're going to need to watch a video that is posted here, but let's take a look at what's in assignment 7. In the first part of assignment 7, you're asked to find a print article in a newspaper or online. It really doesn't matter what it is. But do make sure that the article has at least one quote in it so you can use it for writing the VOSOT. So you're going to use that article and you're going to rewrite it into broadcast form. You're going to write it into 3 different versions of a TV story. One will be as a 20-second reader. One will be as a 25 to 30-second VO. And one will be as a 40 to 50-second long VOSOT. Again, to know how long those are, you just have to read them out loud after you've finished writing them. For this assignment, you will be graded on the proper formatting using the 2-column scripts, as well as following proper broadcast grammar, the stuff that we discussed earlier in this semester. So please refer back to the posting, Formatting a VOSOT package on Moodle, and follow the formatting examples for these types of scripts. For this assignment and all other writing assignments from now on, you are required to submit the assignment in a 2-column script. Before you start to write a TV script, you're going to need to create that 2-column document using the table function in Microsoft Word. If you don't know how to do this, ask a friend, find it on Google, or just email me and I'll help you through it. Start on a Word document, create the table with the 2 columns in 1 row, begin writing inside this table. Remember, you're going to be graded on having the proper directions for the director on the left-hand side, as well as the proper writing and grammar structure on the right-hand side of the script. So you can put all 3 versions of the story in the same file, and when you're done, you'll name that file with your last name and assign 7, and attach that file to this assignment by Sunday at midnight for the full grade on this assignment. Part 2, what I'd like you to do is use the link to the Channel 7 newscast that I have here in Moodle. Identify the types of stories that they are reading. So basically you're going to watch the video and you'll have a piece of paper with you and you're just going to make a list. And on one side you'll put the slug of the story, and then on the other side of the line you'll put the format of the story. So it might be car accident as a reader, or it could be political fight as a VO, or fire in Detroit as a package, or a live VOSOT, or something like that. So just go ahead, make your best guess as best you can based on the information that we learned in the video just before this as to what each of those are. So in part 1, you're writing 3 versions of the same story. In part 2, you're just making a list and trying to identify the stories that are already showing up in the link. Let me just show you where it is, back on Moodle. It's this Channel 7 video. That's the part that you're going to need to watch to be able to do part 2 of Assignment 7. That's what's ahead for this part of your assignment this week. There's going to be another video coming up, how to edit a package. You're going to have an assignment this week also to write and edit a reporter package, and you also have to pitch a story idea. All of that, so it's a big week coming ahead. If you haven't had a chance to do the 5-minute survey, please do that as well. So you're going to really want to pace yourself and try to get each of these assignments done a couple of days into the week, then a couple of days later do the next part of the assignment, then a couple of days later do the 3rd part of the assignment. 3 assignments in all due this week and 1 survey. Take a breath and get going. I'll see you in the next video.